So today we'll just have any specific
I'm here.
topic. We'll just share and see how everyone's doing, and we'll start out with a 2-minute introduction and just how you are today and if your station, what you're dealing with at your station or in the world. And then if anyone has any ideas,
The world.
the world, anything they want to talk about, yeah, let us know and we'll talk about it. So that's easy. Let me start my little timer here. So I'm Stephanie Schubert in Ames, Iowa. I work with Ursula, with Pacifica, of course. And our main thing here in Iowa is usually about COVID. We're still a hot spot. I looked on the news and we have, our latest count was just over 900. And
Wow, 900.
yeah, our governor has made interesting choices. I guess in our town, our school board tonight is going to have a meeting about school because our governor has an interesting take on what the percentages of COVID cases before she will consider closing schools. It's what I read in the Register was like epidemiologists nationally and around the world say if it's over 5%, we should basically close school. But for Iowa right now, it's 15%. And apparently there's a watchdog group that's got her on their list, and they're actually named Watchdog. But anyway, so yeah, so that's interesting. I'm trying to think of anything related to that. That's about it. We're getting some crazy red sunsets from the haze that you guys are making in California and Washington and Oregon and all that. And always want to hear how you guys are doing because I know it's just nonstop. So I'm sure it's just really stressful. So my heart goes out to you. And I'm going to hand it over to Precious because I don't think I met you yet. So welcome to the group, Precious.
Thank you. Thank you so much for welcoming me. And I really do have to thank my boss, my station manager, Louis Vandenberg here at KUCR, who invited me. I'm KUCR manager right now. So again, it's really nice to meet you all. I know that students don't typically come to these meetings, so thank you for being so warm and welcoming. But I do love to know what's going on in the world of public radio, as I've quickly found myself a big lever and now participant in public radio. So of course, again, I'm really glad to be here at KUCR. Right now I'm working remotely. So Louis, he's in the station and I'm at home. Been recording my show from home, encouraging other students to record their shows and PSAs from home and continue to do what we do best, which is serve the people in our airwaves. So that's pretty much what's been going on. Thank you again for welcoming me. Thank you again to Louis. And on that note, I'll pass it over to him and check in on how he's doing too.
All right, thanks, Precious.
It's good to have you.
Okay, so I'm unmuted, and thanks to Pacifica for welcoming so many of my staff people on. I wanted to, having been in Pacifica at KPFK, as you were, Ursula, and you a few weeks ago apprised us of certain goings on in KPFK, then I'm just so glad I never opened the door to see any of those things. But I won't get specific here in the interests of decorum, but I've encouraged the staff to attend these meetings. I think we have somebody else coming in. Yeah. So as to familiarize themselves with this group, which this is I think Pacifica is the originator of public radio, the paradigm of public radio in the United States, and that is radio that's not necessarily professional, and it is supported, but it can be. It can be a professional standard. It's just not commercial, and it's supported by listeners. So I think that it is useful for people to understand that there is another way to be in the world of media other than as a professional person. We have a lot of our alums who have gone on to professional situations. We're fairly proximate to Hollywood and media. And so a lot of our people we have right now, Dexter Thomas has just been one of our great alums, won a Pulitzer Prize, and he's just been nominated for an Emmy, and he works with HBO and the Vice News people there. But the milieu from which our people come
15 seconds.
is one that is informed by the traditions of Pacifica, because that's where I come from. Oh, is this hot
Very cool.
potato? Do I pass it, or do you want to?
Yes, thank you. And you pass it on.
Okay, well, since this is a KUCR thing, do we have, there's Eduardo, one of my, by the way, let me say that Precious is the best student manager we have ever had. So,
Nice.
So Eddie, are you able to?
Hello, what are we doing exactly? Sorry, I just jumped in.
We're doing 2-minute introductions just to say how you're doing.
Well, good to see everybody again. I'm doing well. We're staying indoors as much as possible and running the programming today per the weekly schedule. Have some projects in the works. College radio days coming up, which is I think not limited to college radio. We've been working on that. Precious in particular has been kind of leading the charge, and we're backing her up.
It's also our 54th anniversary day.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so editing programs here, working with students to air their programs since we have COVID restrictions, developing new ways to inform the community about air quality, about I think just the ongoings at the university, and as much as information we can give relevant to COVID, relevant to the election, relevant to what's going on, and coupling it with great music programming is that we have coached, and a lot of the students took their own lead on developing, but doing their own programs from home since the campus has restricted access. I'm not sure who else is on a campus with their station, but ours is right in the campus on the periphery, but nevertheless on the campus, construction going on around us, but we're maintaining and things are good.
Oh, that's good to hear. And you can pass it on to the next person, Eduardo.
Sure. Have you gone, Precious?
Yeah, she did.
How about Ursula?
Okay, hello. I'm happy to see those of you from California. We're all very, very worried. And Joseph, I'm particularly happy to see you. We've been thinking a lot about, what's happening in your neck of the woods. I spoke last night with Barry Vogel, who's in Ukiah, and he was telling me that he could see the fires from his house. And then the phone went dead, which was not good. So, I hope that your yard still looks the way it does on the Zoom screen, Joseph. We're just really concerned about the California stations. And the thing about the school board, which was interesting here in Ames, is our local school board, they kind of played their cards and opened up very, very late because they were kind of playing with the numbers. And so, in fact, by the time they were supposed to open, the numbers were high enough that they were able to close the schools, but now they're rethinking it and may reopen. So we'll see what happens. And I guess the last thing I want to say is there's kind of a can of worms, but we've been having conversations here in our office about what happens Trump wins the election, and how do we prepare for that in terms of, preserving our stations and preserving Pacifica Network. So I'm just curious if any discussions like that are happening at your stations about what do we do to, preserve ourselves, because I've started to become really worried about our safety. I mean, as institutions. So it's just a question. I'm wondering if anybody else is thinking about that and thinking about, if they think there's things that they should do to prepare for
15 seconds.
kind of an onslaught against First Amendment media. So it's a scary topic, but it's kind of slowly something that we feel like we have to think about.
That's a good
We're
topic.
worried about democracy now, whether it'll become a target. So it's just right now, it's just a question, but it's a question that's really hanging in the air for us. And I'll pass it to you, Joseph, because I really want to know how you guys are doing up there in Hoopa.
Well, we are doing much better as of yesterday. Yesterday, when I got off of work, I went outside. I don't have windows in my office like you do, but I went outside and I could see the hills, the mountains, the trees, everything. It looked just like it does behind me right now. And so we
That's
had
good.
air quality measures of 0. Yeah. So the wind shifted, the fire near us has gone down, but we are expecting unhealthy air to continue to be with us in a longer period of time. It's clearing up. We may have some rain today and more likely by Saturday, which would be really nice. But we got a breath of fresh air yesterday and continuing so far today. So those are fire conditions. Yeah, in Ukiah, they've got some big, a lot of smoke, a lot of fire. So we're breathing easier today. Our COVID numbers we have no new cases in the last week. So we're actually the opposite of, and we've had the CDC here for a week, and they've been looking around and working with us and helping us, and just got off the air just before this webinar or Zoom with our daily live COVID update with the tribal chairman. He had the CDC workers in the studio, and we talked about that. So we got that update. I got off a NFCB Zoom call hosted by Sally Kane about good governance and community radio. An excellent power-packed 1 hour. It's all structured really nice. We're going to get that copy of that. They're going to upload it on the NFCB website. So I'll get a copy of that as well. It has some really great tips. As I am moving out of my role as manager at the end of this month and be the lead producer for this station for
15
the
seconds.
remaining year. And so I am looking forward to passing the baton on to whoever they hire. But I think this video of that Zoom call would be really helpful to that person. Trump, yes. What are we going to do? That's a good idea. Start talking about it now. Pass it on to Davine.
Thank you, Joseph.
So, thank you, Joseph. I wish you hadn't brought up the worst case scenario
I'm
of
sorry.
Trump. Because I follow a lot of the pollsters on Twitter, and they're giving, they're giving Biden over 75% chance to win. So I had kind of started letting go of the pit in my stomach a little bit. Now it's back. So speaking of the media and Trump and Trumpism, he's confiscated, it sounds like, Voice of America. And that's concerning to say the least, because it's an international media that's an international media radio, and I'm guessing they're TV too in other parts of the world. But we're trying to educate people in our area. We're gearing up to do a candidate forum next week. We have one candidate here that has gotten a lot of national coverage because if he's elected, he's going to be the youngest person elected since the founding fathers. But he's so full of dog whistle, right-wing, kind of nationalist symbolisms. So we have video clips of him that I'm going to be incorporating into a candidate forum with his opponent because he declined. So I've been able to capture his clips, and we'll play those and have his opponent state his views. So that's one of the ways that we're working to try to raise awareness. So other than that, we're in good shape here weather-wise. We have a lot of rain,
15
and we don't have any droughts. And when the sun is out, the weather, it's really pretty here. So we understand how fortunate we are over here in Western North Carolina. And Alicia, how are you?
Thanks, Davine.
Unmute. Thank you.
There you are.
No matter how many times we do all this, it's amazing how I forget. Anyway, my name's Alicia Sanchez. I'm with KBBF 89.1 FM out of Santa Rosa, California. And yeah, we've had our share of fires, and anything, you bring it on, we're like, oh my gosh. You know, my son keeps saying that he feels like if he looks out the window, it's gonna be like a Jumanji episode where all of a sudden we're gonna have elephants and, you know, running around the streets and everything else. It gets too crazy here. We woke up to an incredible, one time, you know, horrible, it looked like everything was like orange. The whole, we woke up like around, I woke up around 9, and thought it was already like 9 o'clock at night. It was so dark and it was so incredibly orange color and all that, but we're doing really good right now. We're just, you know, hanging on in there. KBBF's been very, we're really been very blessed that we've been away from the fires so that it sort of hasn't affected us. You know, we've been able to stay on the air. We did have a little episode that it got so hot up on the mountain, Mount St. Helena, where our antenna is, and it's in the Napa County, and that the generator, the backup generator, the PG&E decided to turn the lights, the electricity off for the safety of, you know, for prevention of fires. But anyway, our backup generator did not kicked up, so we were lucky enough to get someone to go up there and fix it. And and it was because of the heat. And we just go to extreme up on the mountain. Our antenna is so high up that last time it froze, there was ice and it broke, both of our antennas. So of course we had to have them fixed and rebuilt and all that. I don't even know all that technical stuff. I'm the head of.
15 seconds.
Thank you. I'm also the state manager, station manager, since we're all volunteers. But I try not to deal with the technical stuff. I leave it up to the engineers. So anyway, it's great seeing all of you. It's wonderful. Sorry, I keep going off and on because I have to do something and I don't wanna. But I'm listening. So I just wanted to, you know, to be part of this. But I have to do something before 2 o'clock.
Oh, it's good to have you.
Yeah, but I'm still on. I'm gonna still be here. You just won't see me, but I'll hear you. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you, Alicia.
Alicia, I heard that Willits was burning. Do you know anything about that? She's gone again.
No, I'm back again. Willits is pretty far. It's like, even Ukiah, it's about an hour from us. So
Yeah,
we're pretty
sure.
far away from that. And the only way we get any reports from over there is if they go on stream and then call us, because otherwise our antenna doesn't reach that far. Even though we cover about more than 10 counties, that county, that Mendocino out there is too far for us. But yeah, we're trying to keep tabs on whenever we can, but so far we haven't heard anything. And thank you, Urslan, and all of you for our concern over here in California. Thank you so much for your concern.
Thank you. And I think that leaves Sandy.
Hi, everyone. We are, so I'm with WBPU LP-FM, Black Power 96 in St. Pete, Florida. And we are still struggling with issues of having remote control and access over the automation and different aspects, and allowing, for different DJs and programmers to be able to broadcast remotely, but we are making some progress in that. And similarly with our frequent power outages, making some progress in that as well. Don't really have too much to, we've been struggling to see about grant possibilities. We tried to pursue some of the stuff that was presented in the one roundtable. So far, coming up against dead ends. We're really trying to get a more of a building-wide power backup. I mean, all we've got right now is the little UPS in the rack for 10 minutes of extension, but in the midst of hurricane season and just a lot of storms, we've been losing power a lot, and sometimes it goes more than 10 minutes. So our station manager constantly running down to the station to put it back on air when power comes back. And so we're still struggling with that. And I had a couple of random questions for this discussion, which was just on what kind of guidelines people use for cursing, because we're using the old 7 dirty words, and didn't know if that's, just wondering how people were approaching that. And also had heard about the possibility of some full power, a window opening up for full power stations. And we might be the only low power on this week's call, I'm not sure. But just wondering if anybody knew if that was going to open up a possibility for low power to become full power, or is it just brand new? And if anybody had any resources for how we can further look into that. That's all.
Thanks, Sandy. Good questions. Let's see. So we got Trump is a good issue too. And I don't know if you guys want to talk more about the fires and then the questions that Sandy has. Should we start with those questions? Those are probably easier to start off with, and then we can move into the bigger discussion. Well, let's start with, and thanks. It's so nice to see you. We got a big group for the open forum. That's really cool. I like seeing that. So yeah, guidelines for cursing, the seven dirty words from George Carlin. Is there an update on that?
Well, I can talk to that. I mean, I think a lot of us could, but yeah, it still holds, and nothing's changed. And it's those words, and no, there is no flexibility on that. I think theoretically there's a safe harbor at night, but I don't think that's safe anymore. And we recently had that challenged by some of our producers. They didn't see why they had to comply with that. And so I ended up talking with a lot of station managers around the network about it, because I just wanted to check in with them about it. And we've moved to what a lot of them have recommended, which is now our producers have to take a yearly test again to show that they understand the legal parameters and sign it. so that nobody has the excuse ever of saying they didn't know. And it's really that straightforward. If you have cursing on the station and somebody complains, it may or may not show up rapidly, but it definitely will show up with your license renewal. And not only can it cost enough money to, take down the station, it can also potentially threaten your license, and then your board of directors is stuck with a huge bill with no way to, with no radio station to raise the money to pay it. So I don't know if you're asking if there's flexibility in that, but I would say absolutely not.
No, just if that was the sort of the definitive list. It's so random. You can say damn, but you can't say goddamn. It's a little odd. But and you're saying the safe harbor. We were under the understanding that it's not a big issue for us. We did just have our profanity delay box die, and now we got to get that put back in place for the live guests. It's generally not much of a problem, but just wanted to make sure we were, that our guidelines were the right. We do a test also. To just get people to go through it, but we weren't aware that we were under the understanding that there was a safe harbor, so we were looser in terms of screening some of the music that was late night. You're saying that's not a thing?
Well, every lawyer I've talked to about it has said just don't do it anymore. It just leaves your station too open.
Oh, okay.
It's a judgment call.
Yeah.
That's
helpful.
May I weigh in a bit? I worked with, and Precious won't be surprised to hear me say this since it's a big topic for us. And I worked with William J. Burns, the attorney who argued the Carlin case before the Supreme Court for decades. And then after that, I worked with John Krigler, who also was, both of these people represented Pacifica in major cases. And there have been developments since the Carlin case. Certainly, the 7 dirty words are still dirty words, and they're definitely forbidden on the air. They're considered necessarily indecent. And then also, this was expanded subsequently in 1988, I believe, to be any language. Because you can say incredibly obscene things outside of those 7 words. So this was understood subsequently, and so it was expanded to any language which suggests directly or indirectly, suggests or describes directly or indirectly any sexual or excretory organs or functions. And the reason I think that Ursula is not enthusiastic about using safe harbor is that if you air that kind of language and it gets complained against, you're going to have to hire an attorney to argue as to what exact time that occurred. And then also, there is no way to get out of obscenity. There is no safe harbor for obscenity, only for indecency. So I think it's a crazy idea to try to get loose with your language with these kinds of penalties pending. It's not a terribly big sacrifice, and the downside is very far down. Normally, KPFK does not, and John Krigler's recommendation for Pacifica was not to try to utilize safe harbors, like exactly when does that happen, training staff, and all these details. It's just better to forbid it completely so that you're safe in that situation. So we don't use safe harbor. And as far as I know, at this point, there was an interim period where an interim manager was allowing safe harbor content on KPFK. But there's this question, and most people that do this aren't attorneys who specialize in this field. There's this question as to what is indecency and what is obscenity. And again, you cannot safe harbor out of obscenity under any circumstances. So that's my contribution.
What we have always used from the day that we signed on is your grandmother is listening to the radio. You don't know when. So we never had a safe harbor. And for 40 years, we haven't had a problem.
Well, I appreciate that from everyone. That's very helpful. Thank you.
So who's moderating?
What's that?
Stephanie, you're the
Yeah.
moderator.
Yep. I was moving on to the next question was window opening for full power stations. Was there something specific about that you wanted to talk about, Sandra?
Just if anybody knew about it or how to look into it, because we're wanting to find out if it's only for brand new licensees or if there may be an opportunity for a low power to become a full power, and didn't really know where to look into that.
You have to hire an engineer, a consulting engineer who specializes in this kind of thing to look into it for you. There used to be people that worked with Pacifica at a very low cost, but I haven't heard about those people for a while. But the practice that I've always used in terms of looking for opportunities like that, if you see the FCC is publishing that there's a window there, it might be a good idea to try to find some a consulting engineer who can work with you for on a pro bono basis. I've known them to exist. Whereabouts are you located?
We're in Florida in St. Pete. It was Prometheus out of Philly who helped us do that work for
That's
us, a
right.
nominal fee
Yeah.
originally.
Do they still exist?
Well, they had at one point been getting some funding, so they're very minimal in their operations right now. But they do, but it's very minimal. So
Well, that they might know somebody who could do something for you, but you don't want to let that opportunity pass if it's real, because that's important.
Yeah.
Stephanie? Stephanie?
Yes.
So we use REC Network, and Michelle Bradley, who has that website, I think she's got 2 support groups on Facebook, and then Sharon also has another support group, and they're who we go to for this sort of thing. Michelle did the paperwork for us to get our license renewal I guess we got it in October or November, but she did all the paperwork and is very knowledgeable. And she discusses a lot about the 250 wattage thing coming up. And some stations are eligible for that in certain areas of the country. Our station is not eligible to go up to 250, but she knows who is. And if you're in the right location, you might be able to jump forward to 250. But she's very helpful and is there for, pretty decent about responding very quickly. So I highly recommend her because we've been happy with the support that we got from her.
Oh, that's good to know. I'd heard about them. Did you say it was Michelle or Sharon did your paperwork?
Michelle did the paperwork for the license renewal.
Okay.
Sharon has the LPFM Solidarity support group on Facebook. So, so Michelle has this one that's strictly LPFM, and then she's got another one, LPFM Tech Advice, and then Sharon has the LPFM Solidarity, and they all 3 are full of supportive people that can give you more updates on that question that you have.
Thank you.
And some of the Prometheus people are there sometimes, not all the time, on those support groups.
Yeah, I've been involved with the Radio for People Coalition, which is kind of a group of lawyers and engineers and various other people who basically focus on that entirely. Unfortunately, they had their meeting yesterday. Unfortunately, I've just been too busy to attend, but I would also be happy to contact them because I'm sure that's what they talked about and see if, you know, somebody there would be available for an update.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Next up, I was curious, is there any more Joseph or Alicia want to say? Did you have more to add, Davine? You're on mute.
I have something to add on the insurance thing that I brought up last week or the week before when we're through with this.
Oh, okay. I'll write that down. Joseph or Alicia, or is there anything you guys wanted to add about the fires? I see that, Joseph, you put the Willits evacuation has reduced to a warning as of 2 hours ago.
So has
Yeah,
Willett,
I just looked it up.
has Willett been evacuated?
No, it hasn't.
Joseph, do you know how
They
the,
pulled
you know,
it back to a warning. And
like the, you know, the area around Kmud where the redwood forests are, do you know, are they being threatened at all?
I don't know. I could look that up too, but I just don't know offhand.
Yeah.
Okay, on that, well, we'll see if you
Let
find
me
out.
just say, sorry, real quickly.
Yeah.
Here, hold on. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things and not go off the air. I'm today's engineer. So it's like, oh my God, trying to do two. But anyway, but I didn't want to miss this group. I love this group. You know, one of the things that for us that we're close to the Armstrong Woods, you know, National Park or what. And so for me, that was the biggest thing that, because that's only like 20 minutes from our house. And so we were always constantly on, I mean, I have a suitcase packed. I have all my things that are important to us, our flash drives, our hard drives and everything else at home. We got them packed. We don't have them in our cars, but I have them ready and I have a suitcase ready just in case. And so with clothes and ready for stuff like that. Because last year I did have to evacuate because I live in Sebastopol, which is a little bit closer than to Guerneville. And this time Guerneville was really getting to a point where that's where Armstrong Woods are. And so for us, for me, just the fact that, you know, the trees, that this is a place where even talking about it gets me emotional that I thought, you know, if it was going to burn down, I'm so tired to see so many, you know, I went to, in 2017, I went to see what happened at Coffee Park and Fountain Grove, and it was devastating. It was like being in a war zone. It's just something that you can't express, you know, to anybody. It just, to see the metal part of a car, whatever it's called, the rim or whatever, melted to the ground. It just, imagine the level of the heat of that. And and I know of so many people this time around also who have lost their homes. So it's a kind of situation that you almost get to start growing numb and trying, and especially when you're on the radio, you can, you know, I'm not on the air, but you know, Edgar is the one that's mostly on the air. What I normally do is I'm the cheerleader, so of course I can only express it here. You know what I mean? Freak out here in front of all of you, but but not with the programmers, because I feel like it's real important for me to say que si se puede, we're gonna do this, and keep and I mean also just checking in with them, and so with all of this going on, but and they get surprised that I even do check in, and whenever they're on the air, I'm giving them little they gotten over that I'm listening to kind of check on them. They now realize that they get really happy that I'm listening, and that I call them and tell them how great of a job they are doing, considering that some of them have had to evacuate, and they slept at the radio just to continue. They come in and do programming, but this time around, the Armstrong Woods trees were saved, in the area around Guerneville that we thought was the closest to us, and Forestville. Those communities are doing okay, and so in Sebastopol we're doing okay. But yeah, it's one of those things that when we think about it, it really gets to us, and but we're trying to just keep saying, okay, like Joseph was saying, today it's a good day because it's the air is a little bit better. It's been so unhealthy that we've had to all wear masks, then 95 or what, instead of our just regular cloth mask. So no, we're doing, like I said, it's just one of those things of that so we it just, you're trying not to talk about it sometimes because it really brings it all up, but it is important to, like, I remember the word that I said last time, desahogarse in Spanish, which means, what my brother, I told my brother that we were trying to come up with what that meant when you let go of those things, when by talking you kind of desahogarse. So my brothers, one of my brothers, who he said, well, you know what the opposite of that is ahogarse, which means you're drowning. So desahogarse means that you're trying to throw out things so that you don't drown in all the emotions and stress that's going on. So I thought, oh my goodness, I hadn't even thought about it in Spanish. That's what it means. Because we came up, Stephanie, remember you came up with a word, and I kept thinking, oh, it's not that, it's not kind of, but releasing. Anyway, sorry,
Yeah,
I didn't want to
I
go
remember
off
that.
on this, but I think for all of us, I guess what I'm saying is that this Zoom meeting, for me, being with all of you who are in the same situation, it's really important for me, and it's a way where yo me desahogo, which I let go of whatever I'm feeling, and to make me keep going more. And so I truly appreciate all of you, and just I look forward to, and
that means a lot. I'm really glad that we can have that for you.
No, thank you. Yes, I look forward to this, and whenever I can, it's because I'm in the middle of stuff. And
well, I think you really coined the relentlessness of this fire. It's even like having a light day can be a respite just amidst all the chaos. It's really interesting to hear about. So yeah, hopefully just keep hanging in there. Just
thank you so much, Stephanie.
Hanging in there, yeah.
Thank you. I'm gonna go off just for a few more minutes, and then I'll be back.
Sure. Should we go over to Davine, you were going to talk, you were going to mention something on insurance, and then we'll talk about hopefully not a second presidency of Donald Trump, but the possibility.
Oh my God. So, so again, on those Facebook support groups, I threw out the question about insurance, and the best that I found, and I got a lot of information back from, because I put it on 2 groups, and apparently there's a nonprofit alliance that has insurance for people like us who have no paid employees, and the difference in the D&O, which is directors and officers, and I'm just putting this out here for people to think about in case they're looking for insurance that's not $2,500 a year too. So the difference in the D&O is about, the quote that they gave was half of what we're paying now. So it's a national
Really good.
nonprofit. Yeah, national nonprofit. Was it Insurance Alliance? Something like that. But I can find the name if anybody wants it. And one thing that I neglected to mention whenever I did my intro about how things are going, we do have one of our wonderful music historian show hosts who does great music show of shellac music from the 20s and 30s.
Wow.
Well, he's also a firefighter, and he has gone to the northwest country to fight the fires up there. So apparently they're pulling people from all over because he thought he was retired from doing that, but obviously he had to pack up his firefighting bag and get back out to the Northwest Oregon area. And so that's all.
Wow, that's amazing.
Uh,
Good news
I
about
would-
your insurance anyway.
I'm sorry, Stephanie. I would like to get that information about the officers. I said I was going to find out myself and got caught up with, too many other things, but I would like to find out that because our board of directors wants to make sure that we look at ours and see if we can get it cheaper. So if you could send
Yeah.
maybe through
If you
Zoom
could,
or
if you want to put your email up on the chat, or you can communicate through me, whatever works for you guys.
I'll put it up on the chat. I got to go find it on my email, and then I'll put it up on the chat, and I'll tag you, Alicia.
Okay, thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's talk about Donald Trump. I feel like one thing for certain is he's going to contest the election regardless of whatever. I mean, of course, if he wins, he won't, but he'll contest it, even if it's whatever the margin is.
Big
If he loses.
votes.
Yeah. Will you remind us, Ursula, are there certain, you're talking about preparations, like just having a plan in case the worst goes down. That's what you're talking about, getting people's opinions on that?
Well, I just, sometimes I wonder whether maybe a year from now, I might be in a position where I might be saying, why didn't I kind of prepare a little bit more for this? And so I find myself asking myself, what could I possibly do right now to kind of create more safety and more stability for the organization. And obviously I worry about Pacifica as well. So I find myself asking the questions like, what are little things that I could be doing now that I might wish I had done a year from now if it gets really hard? I mean, hopefully it won't. I can't, it's really hard for me to speculate about what is going to happen with the election and what Mr. Trump will do, even if he loses. It's like, that's kind of way beyond my wheelhouse. But I do think there are things that I could be doing here locally to just create a stronger foundation to, and I guess one area that I do think about is, I ask myself, where are the real vulnerabilities of community radio? And we certainly have a lot. And, we've even though, we've still basically been living under a benevolent FCC until now. And so, so like, for instance, in the area of the violations, that's kind of like a low-hanging fruit. I think most stations, including mine, you know, take advantage of the fact that there are violations and we just get away with it, you know, because there is no radio police out there. But I think, you know, that like our tightening up of the process of producers, you know, being reminded of the law is part of that. I just, I think that's an unnecessary vulnerability that we've enjoyed in the past, but I don't think we should enjoy. I mean, there are a lot of ways that the FCC could shut down KHOI if they really wanted to, because it's very hard actually to do everything legally with, with lay people. So I guess that's one area I think about is just being less vulnerable legally. But I also think about, I ask myself, how we can strengthen ties in the community and I don't know, on a network-wide level, it seems to me that probably Democracy Now! Is the biggest target. I have no doubt that the Trump administration is aware of Democracy Now! And probably would make that a target pretty quickly, So I just, I mean, I've been through one struggle already where Democracy Now! Was under attack, and there was a national fight to stop that. I just wonder how that would look today. I think that if Democracy Now! Was shut down by the government, there would be a big response. And what could be in place to support that response, So I guess I'm just thinking locally. I'm also thinking nationally, how can ties be strengthened so that, I mean, I'm hoping that this is all unnecessary. I'm hoping that we'll enjoy our First Amendment freedom, and tolerance for community radio that we've enjoyed for the last, 60 years now. But I'm just starting to ask myself, where would be the vulnerabilities if that kind of tolerance wasn't there anymore? And I'm not sure I have a lot of answers yet, but I just try to ask myself, what would I regret not having done, at this point? So it's a question that I think about a lot, and I'm curious whether some of you have thought about it. And, usually the way these things go is somebody's kind of the sacrificial lamb, and I would guess Democracy Now! Is probably first in line for that, because it's the highest profile, program associated with community radio. So I wish I could be more constructive right now. Right now I'm just kind of in the process of asking the question, do we as a network want to strengthen communication ties? Do we want to locally strengthen, ties with friendly organizations like the ACLU, organizations that are basically positioned to take on, citizenship rights? I don't know, these are just questions that I'm rolling around. And I apologize for not being more constructive right now. I'm just kind of at the beginning of this process and wondering if you have had any thoughts about it too, even just on the level of being concerned about it.
I would think that the ACLU, if the whole of community radio was threatened and something like Democracy Now!, which is alternative media, were threatened, I would think that as a collective group, if we went to them, they would take it on, because that's such a big deal. The First Amendment is such a big deal. And if we've got the numbers, we've got a number. If all of community radio were threatened, I think you could get a lot of people to band together, and also our listeners too, because if anything ever goes wrong at the station with Democracy Now! Not playing, and sometimes the file won't come in, I get complaints. So there are fans of Democracy Now! So I think that we could definitely work towards a coalition to go to the ACLU, because I think that's such a big deal. That what he's trying, what the threat to an independent media from Trumpism is, I think it would destroy America.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the truth is that right now Pacifica is pretty much out there in the wind. I mean, I don't know where Pacifica would get support if it was really challenged again. And maybe the ACL, maybe you're right, Davine. Maybe a conversation with the National ACLU is a good idea.
Ursula, I've got a thought. Can you hear me?
Yeah, who's speaking?
Who do we have?
Cynthia
Cynthia.
in New York.
Oh, Cynthia Poole.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome. Yeah.
Hi, Cynthia.
I'm sorry I was late.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead.
This is
My
Cynthia.
thought
She's from Albany.
Yeah, when you're worried about the community radio stations, I think before Trump even thinks about doing something with community radio, he'd want to knock off MSNBC and CNN because they are totally against him. And I think that would be his first target, but that's my
Yeah,
thought.
I think you're right. But my experience with this type of thing is that ultimately they want everything. It's weird, you know. It's weird the way that works. They want everything, you know. But I agree. I think that, and I think he already has, you know, kind of started tussling with them.
I think in terms of public radio, he would mess around with the regulatory apparatus. But I agree with Cynthia also in that the priorities are going to be those entities that are very critical. You know, one of the most ominous signs has been the politicization of the Justice Department. And recently, William Barr, who is the most corrupt attorney general I've ever, and I think in American history, has talked about using sedition against protesters. The Insurrection Act is something that has been that Trump has spoken about. I think we've never heard language like this from a presidential candidate that portends something that looks like despotism. It looks like something that doesn't belong in this country, something out of Pinochet or Turkey or North Korea or whatever. It's very scary. And I constantly think about what you were saying, Ursula, that a year from now, should these things, which have never been discussed as even a possibility in American politics, actually come to be, how much regret will I have and what form will it take? And I will think, what could I have done? I think we're in the media where we're trying to do in every way that we can to enlighten people as to what the issues are. And I noticed that more and more in what you would call the mainstream media, this idea of the potential despotism of Trump and his what's been called a hostile takeover, or maybe not so hostile, of the Republican Party. What does this portend for the United States? And it's pretty dark. It's interesting. I think it's founded in race. His appeal coming down that escalator was race. And so he's encouraged and activated and released a lot of this racist element. And amazingly, there are so many people that are so attached to their white supremacy that they'd rather lose their rights, they'd rather lose their democracy than give up this idiotic and completely destructive, even self-destructive notion. So what we do is we do as much as we can to put this information out there and to explain how dangerous it is without seeming, you know, over the top with it. But it's actually beyond what we, I think, were the early harbingers of and warning people. It's in the mainstream, it's everywhere. And if the election is lost to Donald Trump, I think I know here we have tried in every way we can to get the information out there. What more I can do as an individual, I give as much money as I can to good candidates. And I've even been sending money to the Lincoln Project, which is a bunch of never Trumpers. I think they're really good in tearing up Donald Trump. So anything that's going to do that, I'm going to support. So I've never contributed money like I have this time, ever, and I just feel that's something I can do. So I'm going to do it. I mean, if anybody has any other ideas about what we can do, I know Precious has been out protesting. And Eduardo, I don't know if he's been out protesting. In fact, he caught COVID out doing that, he thinks. And so I think everybody's sense of urgency and alarm is completely warranted.
I sometimes feel that I wish that we could build up some sort of defense fund, you know, so that if a station is attacked or a production group is attacked, that there would be somebody there to help them pay with, you know, because a lot of this plays out just in slap suits and things like that.
That's true. Well, they've packed the courts. The Justice Department is completely distorted and is now serving political purposes. These things are, this doesn't look like, at least what America's supposed to look like. With all of its flaws, I really hope we don't lose what we have. I think the election may be negated on a pretext of it's corrupt, and it's you know, he's working it every way that he can. He is certainly stunningly irresponsible in his attempt to discredit the vote itself with no basis in fact whatsoever.
And I think that's a good idea too, Ursula, because that is a very Donald Trump MO, to drag people through courts and just exhaust them of their resources until they can't fight anymore. So having a fund to start out with sounds smart.
Yeah. I mean, I guess another area of vulnerability I think about a lot is that it's very hard these days to get radio hosts to not pass judgment on Donald Trump. You know, and I hear a lot of things said on the air that technically you could say that they're trying to, you know, we're not legally allowed to pass judgment on a candidate on the air. And I mean, it's very hard these days to get people to not do that, because it's such a gray area by now, you know? And sometimes I just think, you know, all they would have to do is just go after that and they could probably wipe out a few stations just that way. So I don't know. I don't know if you have trouble with producers at your station, but it's hard to get people to not comment on, you know, how crazy it is. But he is a candidate.
You know,
So Louis, we're contributing to my husband's here. You can't see him. He's out of the picture. We're contributing monthly to the Lincoln Project too, because they really nail the vulnerabilities.
Yeah, also, I understand that people that know Trump that say, who may have worked with him for a long time and quit, there's so many of those people. Another one, just two came out today. Dan Coates came out, and someone else who's worked in an assistant to Pence has gone public saying that the guy is completely unfit and a total disregard for human life. But in the Republican world, they say that Trump is really torn up and upset because of the Lincoln Project. And I think that it takes, there's something, I have been a candidate, a nominee of the Democratic Party, and been inside the apparatus of Nancy Pelosi, everybody. I've met all of those people and worked with them to some extent or another. I was a candidate 3 times, a nominee 3 times. And I gotta tell you, they are incredibly tepid. There's this sense of like, we've got to play it by the rules. We've got to rise to a higher, when they go lower, we go higher. And this is, I think you need to do a low blow every once in a while to these guys. Maybe not every once in a while, every time, because that's how they play. You got to hit them very hard. You got to make it absolutely clear. No subtlety at all. And I'm not talking about on the air here. This is the standard that Ursula is talking about. This is what you have to embrace. And it is an election. There are special rules for an election. I'm talking about the rough and tumble out there in the political fray. And the Democratic Party is feckless and feeble. And I'm not completely convinced that they're making the best play ever. I do think, after being I've been a critic of Joe Biden my whole life. I mean, just horrible on every single thing: crime bill, bankruptcy bill, his credit card companies and Delaware and the Iraq War. Oh my God! And I've had personal confrontations with him, but I think that Kamala Harris is. I'm just skeptical, but she is pretty good, and I think you should just unleash her and have her go out there and do it, because I think that the energy level on the Democratic side is too low, and we're just expecting Trump to destroy himself, which he's doing a pretty good job with. But I think that the Democrats have to get out there and be much more aggressive. And so I think they're just tepid, though.
And, for someone who came out of the Chicano movement, we used to always say that we would go like this, that we used to say that the Democrats and the Republican Party were one animal with 2 heads. So that for us, for me, it's been very, it's always, I vote Democrats and that's it. But, and I teach my children from very, I told my children, my 2 sons, well, the first one, the older one, I said to him that I think I've said this story before, where I told him when he was very young, around 8 years old or younger, I said, you can come home and be full of tattoos. You can come home, be full of earrings all over. You can come home with purple hair. You can come home and say you're gay, and it won't matter to me. But if you come home and tell me you're a Republican, I will disown you on the spot. And my poor kid, grew up that way, and also grew up like, I've been a union organizer. So one time when I introduced one of my boss in one of the unions, I said, this is my boss. My son was hating him. My boss came over and said, why is your son giving me such dirty looks at a dinner, And I went and talked to him and I said, why are you doing that? He goes, Mom, you say you hate bosses. So I'm hating your boss. I'm hating your boss. So I said, oh my gosh, I have to tell you, there's some good bosses there. But anyway, the thing I'm saying is that for me, and also Mexican people, when I was doing the immigration law, they said to me, and I'm so thankful to Reagan because he got the amnesty law for us to be able to get legalized. And I said, you know what? I'm going to tell you something. I'm doing this service free of charge. But if you ever continue with this attitude that Reagan is good, I am going to charge you, or I'm going to tell you I'm not going to help you with your papers. You know, I said, let me just tell you the basic rules around, since you're new to the process here. There's 3 R's that I want you to always be against. I said rich people, I said Republicans, and Reagan. That's it. Las 3 R's. That's it. That's basically how you got to guide yourself from now on. And so for me, you know, there's always in my family, and believe it or not, in my family, I do have some people who support Trump, which, you know, they're thank goodness they're not close to around here. But one of the things for me that I find is that I feel that and you know, I came out of the Chicano, like I said, Chicano movement, where I felt like, man, in the 70s, I thought the revolution was going to happen in about a month or 2 months, and it was going to be over. We were going to be out there and change things was going to happen. Then I came on to realize, no, in the United States, you know, that's not going to ever happen. But we're not going to have, and especially because also I'm nonviolent, we're not going to do it with violence. There is no way. We always have to do a peaceful demonstration, peaceful demonstrations, people, in other words, resistance, everything has to do that way. But we do have to, and something that was very hard for me was to start telling people to go and vote, you know, to go out and vote, that it did make a difference, that you have to go and vote, and that you have, and even now I tell people, yeah, like, just like Lewis, I'm not, you know, I don't, Biden, and, you know, I mean, I'm, you know, it's not like I was a Bernie person, and, you know, but I feel like I need to say to people right now, we gotta look who the enemy is here. And if some people don't like the word enemy, to say then the point of contention here that we got, this election is very, very important. This is not about just, you know, this is about our whole life, our whole future, our whole democracy, everything. This is no time for you to, you know, for me to be pissy and say, oh God, you know, look at what the Democratic Party did to Bernie and blah, blah, blah. None of that. This is no time. We have to find the smallest thread. And I'm talking about a darn thread of unity. And we got to grab onto that and look at each other and say, I'm going to, you know, deal with this. We're going to not have what I call the trespasser at the White House. I do not call his name, and I don't say his name because, you know, and so to me, you know, we need to find that thread of unity and say, this is it. This is a historical election. And we cannot, you know, when I hear Mexican people telling me they're pissed and they're upset about the trespasser at the White House, I tell them, I don't want to hear it. All I want to hear from you is that on election day, you're going to go and vote. And if you don't know, if you cannot vote because you're undocumented, then you vote with your feet. You go and get and you go and talk to your relatives, your friends who are able to vote, to go and vote. And that's what I'm going to be doing now. Normally I leave it up to my relatives because, like I said, most of my relatives are right on. they vote the right way. But this time I'm not. I'm going to make sure to say, you know what? I'm calling them and talking to them and saying, relatives and friends, if you ever wanted to give me a gift in my lifetime, is for you to go and vote the right way right now. We got to not have 4 more years. We cannot have 4 more years of what's going on, because it will be the destruction of our democracy and of our future, of everything that all of us in this Zoom meeting have been fighting for. We've been in this, out on the streets for, 50 years, more than 50 years, and all of us. We cannot let this one individual, and it's not just one individual, it's that whole idea. And I tell people too, don't listen, especially on election day, don't listen to that, turn off the TV. Do not let New York, somebody calling New York already a win for the trespasser to influence you in California not to go and vote because you already gave up and everything else. So, for me, it's absolutely, I am like determined that we gotta find, and even like I said, I go and look at everyone. I'm even with my relatives who I disagree with, I say, no, I'm gonna find some thread of unity and try to get you to understand why the next 4 years are so critical for our lives, especially starting November, So anyway, I'm sorry.
Well said, Alicia. Well said.
That's so beautiful.
It's just so critical right now. It's so important for us to really just, like I said, this is a time not to sit still, not to be silent, not to do this, that we just got to unify ourselves like in so many ways,
Exactly. By the way, I interviewed Cesar Chavez in that studio right there, and Ursula. Who was the woman that we fought the Pacifica Wars on Democracy Now! With? What was her name?
Is it Dolores Huerta?
No, Mary Frances Berry.
Oh.
Mary, I had her in this room, hitting her during that whole period. Dolores Huerta, of course, we've had her here on campus quite a lot. So, but anyway, that was beautifully stated, and I always did find the Chicanos in the UFW, the farm workers, to be really grounded as to the realities that we are facing. And sometimes you have to, even though Joe Biden's not ideal, I'm sending money to Joe Biden. Never would I have considered that prior to now, but the stakes are as high as they can possibly be.
And on another note, I've heard lots of names for the president, but I never heard trash pastor. So that was pretty. That's a good one.
That is, yeah.
Anyway,
Well, on the more local level, I mean, the more local level, I mean, I so appreciate and respect what you're saying about the election. And I'm certainly hoping for the best. But I'm wondering whether there need to be conversations within the organization, say like on the board of director levels, or I guess, Joseph, I don't know if you have a board of directors or the tribal council is your board of directors. But, I mean, do you think there needs to be some discussion about what if there are challenges to the radio station? Or do you think that just, adds to the fear and anxiety, I'm just trying to figure how much of this should be discussed. Just like on this call, I mean, on this meeting right now, I have a lot of reservations about whether I should bring this topic up, but I'm just wondering whether, when you look at your board directors, do you feel that it should be discussed? Like, what if we do get a challenge, And, it usually happens kind of in complicated ways, Like we recently, we have a good relationship with our city government here in Ames. They come on the radio at least 3 times a week to talk about what's happening. But recently I had a city councilwoman on the morning show, and the mayor wrote me an email and told me what I could and couldn't ask her. And I was like, wow, like, since when does the mayor of Ames, Iowa get to tell me when I get to ask people on the air. That's an overstep, you know? And I didn't say anything to them about it. Certainly was a red flag. And it's kind of just like how these things happen, you know, like if I had gone ahead and not, I mean, it was kind of an unnecessary thing that he did, because I wasn't even interviewing her about what he was worried about. And so I didn't really, you know, bring it up with him. But I thought to myself, you know, that's kind of part of the atmosphere now, is that somehow the mayor of this town, who is a Republican, you know, feels he can tell me what to ask people on the air. And he feels he can tell a city council person what to talk about, which I don't think he really can do either. Not really. I don't think he's the boss of the city council. So, you know, say I had gone ahead and you know, asked the questions he didn't want, just on principle, just to demonstrate that, you know, that this radio station has the right to do that, and there had been retaliation, would the board of directors been prepared, you know, to deal with that kind of pushback from the city? I think this is how these things start playing out, you know, and I wonder how much should be discussed with the board of directors that we're in a less supportive climate than we used to be, and it could get worse, you know. So I don't know, does that make any sense to you guys? That, I mean, I just wonder what needs to be talked about, you know, what are people prepared to deal with?
Well, we have already gone through, when the license transfer was happening from the previous holder of the license to us, gone through political opposition to us getting the license, because I had become an accidental activist in the community from a period back in 2008 and 9. And we did have big time corruption here. 4 of our county county manager, assistant county manager, new county manager, all are in federal prison over some of the corruption that was going on. Fortunately for me, we lawyered up and we prevailed. But it was expensive. And it ended up with it actually ended up with a defamation lawsuit.
That you did or that they did?
Well, we won the defamation lawsuit.
Okay. Well, that's good. Did you get your money back?
We got a lot of satisfaction, and it got worldwide coverage because it was, you know, with social media now, you can have I call it a stoning on social media, that as soon as we filed the lawsuit, the stoning stopped. And then as time went by, we won the lawsuit based on what was said in that public stoning. But if you have people who are associated with you who are supportive of what you're trying to do, you know, in my case, the law was on my side. Yeah.
I'm just not sure that a lot of people on our board of directors here signed up for, you know, that level of confrontation.
Well, and a board is like a marriage. So, you know, the partners that you have on your board, if you have an opportunity to, you know, a board member is going to leave, it's in our best interest to find really committed people who we know will have our backs if something comes up, because people are definitely emboldened to because of the abuse of the bully pulpit that we've seen, the constant everyday abuse of that bully pulpit. that sends messages down to the followers that, hey, we can do that too and get away with it, because he's getting away with it.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I think that's how it works. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm sorry, I just wanted to really quickly add to this and say that I guess with everything in life, especially with things that are as against the grain of what we've been conditioned to perceive as normal, which unfortunately public media is part of that now. We always have to, one, like hope for the best, but expect the worst. So I think this conversation is so important. I think we have to hope that there's not another 4 years, that we have to expect the very worst and be prepared for the possibility of this continuing, and the threat of our First Amendment right to be here to serve our communities in the way in which we do will be threatened by the person who sits at the highest seat in the United States. So to prepare for that, I'm so glad that we're talking about creating a fund to help one another, the big and the small stations, of that we're creating an idea of having a board of directors discuss what to do in the case that this does become a reality, because we can't just wait until January of the upcoming year and say, oh, well, this is what's happening now. This is the situation. We have to go in being prepared, and hopefully we never have to use the preparations that we make, but those preparations have to be there, because if not, it's going to start with these smallest stations dwindling off, and everybody else saying, I can't worry about that because we need to sustain our own stations, which is normal. It's inherent to being a human and want self-preservation. But at the same time, we have to come into this, we have to walk into this ready to advocate for everyone here and the people who aren't here as well. So I think this is really important. And I love that, Ursula, you were mentioning on the local basis, what are we doing? So students, even at KUCR, were saying, we're having all these important conversations with our community, and we're talking about the world and our nation, but what are we doing besides our obvious service of being a radio station? How are we serving our community? Do they see us? Do they know our faces and our voices? And people were talking about serving people on the local level so that they know we don't just care about preserving our radio stations, we care about preserving our communities. And people do not care. The reason why people are even Donald Trump supporters in the first place, it's like I think he really like attaches to people's feelings of forgottenness. So I think, no matter how valid that may be, I think that's what he appeals to. And if we are actually being the people to fill that void for those within our own communities, that's where it starts. So I think it's that dual action, that local level action that we all need to be doing within our own radio stations and communities. How are we asking that our cities provide drive-through voting for the people who, with good reason, are worried about voting, and also are worried about mail-in ballots that may end up leading Donald Trump to contend the election, and How are we pushing for drive-through voting, which everybody should be on board with? And then two, on a more overarching level, like Ursula was saying, we need to ask the board to have these conversations. We need to talk about money in the case that any station is put into jeopardy. This fight is being had everywhere around the world right now, from Julian Assange right now facing potentially extradition, which could lead to 100 years plus in prison in United States soil. We have these questions of how we, as the United States, will value our journalists and our public journalists and radio stations. And while we're having these conversations right now and they feel so tangible for us, we need to make them as tangible for us as they are for everyone that's our listeners and supporters. They need to know, and that doesn't have to be catastrophizing everything. We have the conversations that kind of operate in the potential catastrophe. For our listeners, it's just, oh, here's why this is important. Here's why I'm gonna continue to listen. Here's how I can support. So we need to give, every time that we're on air, it's like we need to provide that, that truth to our listeners as much as we can. And then the board of directors needs to be acting in a way that feels very tangible financially, coming up with a game plan. I think that these are all important conversations to have, and I'm so glad that we're having them and that I get to hear, like, as a student, that makes my heart feel so full that people care and having these conversations. So yeah, I guess that's my perspective on it. And of course, thanks for letting me be here and share that. And thanks to Lewis for inviting me today. And I'll keep it short at that.
Thanks, Precious.
Thank you, Precious.
It's a hard conversation to know how to have, you know, to feel like it's not just discouraging, you know.
So thank you for bringing it up. I think it's...
Thanks, Davine.
Yeah, I think Precious has a good point about, just because you plan for the worst, it doesn't mean that it's a given, It's
Yeah. Mhm.
Very good. Very good. Very mean.
Does anyone else have anything they want to add for today? Wow, we really covered the bases and we went everywhere. This has been a really compelling conversation. Thank you, everyone.
I think you see why I'm so proud of my staff.
Yes, absolutely. I hope you can join us again, Precious. And
Anytime y'all are here, I would love to be here, and I'm learning so much, and just listening makes me, like I said, it makes me really happy to know like this is so many decades in the making, and there's students and young people ready to help you on whatever way that you need. So we're here for you.
I wasn't in the beginning. So where are you, Precious? What's your title here at what radio? I'm sorry.
I'm at KUCR 88.3 FM in Riverside, California, and I'm the student manager right now.
Okay, thank you.
okay, well, I guess that's a good place to stop. Thank you again, everyone, so much. Thank you. This has been amazing. And we'll be back again next week. Not sure if it'll be an open forum or if we'll have a focused presentation, but anyway, thank you and see you again sometime in the future. Have a good Thursday.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.